Since his appearance in Chapter 49, Hajun has become one of the most mysterious and interesting characters in Record of Ragnarok. His entrance, the mystery around his appearance, and his existence has raised a lot of questions, and it's made me think about quite a few things surrounding this fight and the fighters involved in it, and I think now I finally have a good enough idea to make a video talking about it. So today I'm going to talk about my theory around Hajun, what his connection to ZeroFuku is, and what exactly is his origin in this story. Before I get into today's video, I of course have to mention my subscriber goal for 2021, hitting 5,000 by the end of the year. So if you're already a fan of the channel and you're not subscribed, you might as well to help me reach that goal. The other thing is my Patreon. If you want to help support me and the channel directly while also getting access to reviews for Solo Leveling and The Boxer, you can always become a patron. I have a link to my Patreon down in the description. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. It's probably the best idea to start off talking about ZeroFuku, because ZeroFuku himself is very weird in the context of Record of Ragnarok, because he's the only fighter we've seen go up who is a completely original character. There's no ZeroFuku in mythology. I know he's an amalgamation of the 7 lucky gods, who are real mythological figures, but ZeroFuku is an OC. So his appearance in the tournament is very strange, because you're having a character original to the series going up against an actual mythological major religion figure. So it seems very clear that ZeroFuku is almost definitely not meant to win the fight. But what is his connection to Hajun? Because I feel like ZeroFuku's existence as an original character is sort of an explanation for what has been going on with Hajun, why he has not been present prior to this moment. So we should probably start off by mentioning the most direct literal connection between ZeroFuku and Hajun, that being ZeroFuku's horns, which Hajun seemingly came out of. The horns stabbed into ZeroFuku's head, turned into these dragons, which eventually created an egg which Hajun was born from, seemingly after taking over and transforming ZeroFuku's body. Now, the most interesting thing that I checked after Chapter 49 came out is that ZeroFuku had these horns before becoming corrupted by misfortune. So those have always been there, which suggests that Hajun has always been there with ZeroFuku. He didn't come there after the fact, once ZeroFuku was corrupted. So this creates a very interesting situation. Why was Hajun, this evil demon lord, always attached to this, nice, fortune-giving godchild? And I think I have an explanation for that. When we're first introduced to ZeroFuku after the 7 lucky gods combine with each other, we are given this sort of backstory, this retelling of an event, in which this horrible being descended to Earth and caused calamities to appear everywhere. Now, this is very strange in hindsight, because it seems like this was referring to ZeroFuku, but after reading ZeroFuku's backstory, it's very clear that ZeroFuku never did this. After becoming consumed by misfortune, he never brought disasters and calamities upon the earth. He split himself into the 7 lucky gods to specifically avoid causing anyone harm. So this thing is clearly not ZeroFuku. What is it? Well, now it should be pretty obvious. This thing was Hajun. And considering that the world is no longer destroyed, it's pretty clear that Hajun was removed from the situation in some manner. And it's quite likely that the 7 lucky gods were not meant to contain ZeroFuku. Maybe ZeroFuku intended them to contain himself in a way. But it would seem that they are the outer layer of a prison, protecting the inner layer of a prison, which would be ZeroFuku, who is meant as a container for Hajun. In order to stop him from destroying the Earth, it's quite likely that Hajun was contained, had his essence split into the two horns, and they were placed on ZeroFuku for safekeeping. Now, putting them on this small child sounds like a really bad idea for safekeeping until you consider what ZeroFuku did with his time on Earth. He went around sucking up all of the misery and misfortune of mankind. It sounds, to me, like ZeroFuku's original purpose was to absorb all of this misery and despair for the purpose of satiating Hajun so he would not break out and cause destruction himself in order to generate more misery. Now, we have to raise the question, why was ZeroFuku doing this? And this is where we get into the fact that he's an original character. ZeroFuku has this ability to absorb misery, and we don't really see him do anything else. So this is where Bilzebub comes into the picture, in some regard. Because even Bilzebub seems to have not known what happened to Hajun. He doesn't know where he went. When he sees him in the arena, he's surprised. Ah, that's what happened to that. So perhaps Bilzebub did not create ZeroFuku, but someone did. I think ZeroFuku was artificially created for the purpose of absorbing misfortune and feeding Hajun to keep him from breaking out, and it's quite likely that those horns were created by Bilzebub for the purpose of keeping Hajun within something so that he could be satiated without destroying the earth. And at some point, those horns were lost, or he made them and they were taken away and he was never told about what happened to them. So, to give a summary, I think what happened was Hajun appeared on the earth, caused some great cataclysm. The rest of the gods saw this and thought, we can't have that. Humans suck sometimes, but we can't get rid of them right now. So we need to contain this guy. So they have Bilzebub whip up these special magical horns that Hajun's essence is then split up and contained within. However, Hajun is still hungering for misery and misfortune, so they have to find a way to satiate him with that. So someone creates ZeroFuku. ZeroFuku is then given the horns and then released on the earth to go around absorbing misery and misfortune on a smaller scale, and then all of the misery that is contained within ZeroFuku feeds Hajun. And this leads to ZeroFuku eventually becoming so miserable that he's pretty much just a perpetual motion machine. He's just endlessly generating misery for Hajun to consume, so he's never released. And that then explains why Hajun has come out now. At the end of chapter 48, ZeroFuku was redeemed and was no longer consumed with misery. The horns even fell off of him after getting punched by Buddha. So ZeroFuku is no longer the perpetual misery generator that he was before, and as a result, Hajun is no longer satisfied. This allows him to break free of the horns and take over ZeroFuku's body. So now he's released and he's going to go back to collecting misery on his own, which entails a great deal of death and destruction. However, seems like Buddha is going to be his first and primary target in this, so we're going to have to find out if Buddha will be able to stop Hajun, which I guess was something no one else was able to do, or no one else wanted to do prior. So yeah, we're just going to have to find out what happens with that in the next chapters. But with that is my theory on Hajun. He has to have had one of the most interesting introductions of any character in the series. We've had plenty of bizarre transformations, but none in which someone turns into a completely different character. There's still the question of whether or not ZeroFuku is still alive within Hajun, if he can be saved from Hajun. I assume that is going to be Buddha's primary goal for this, I'm thinking, final act of the fight. Pretty interesting, pretty exciting. We're just going to have to find out what happens in the next chapters. So with that, that's all I have to say for today's video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Record of Ragnarok chapter reviews every month. If you enjoy other series such as Jujutsu Kaisen, Kengan Omega, and Chainsaw Man, I do videos in those series as well, so if you're interested in those, you should definitely check out my channel. If you enjoyed discussing Record of Ragnarok with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce in this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have a link to that down in the description. And since it's the end of the video, it's time to give a shout out to my wonderful patrons, Fuse, Neo, Dejan Redden, Anthony Chavez, Honey Mustard, Zach Rowitz, K-God, Chris Redfield, Moonshadow935, Rat, Ryzen 4K, and Artist. Thank you all very much for supporting me on Patreon. I greatly appreciate it. And if you too want to get a shout out at the end of videos, or access to reviews for solo leveling in the Boxer, you can always become a patron as well. There's a link to my Patreon down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.